Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Podcast, episode 123. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
And today we have the most high-effort episode in our history. An episode that has been in the work for literally half a year.
Yeah, this one's been a while. Partially just trying to figure out how to do it, and also executing, because we put money on the line.
So without any further ado, let us figure out, can you actually afford Warhammer 40k?
Let's get into it. Sounds good, man.
Okay, before we get into it, 2 seconds. This is not just us shilling. We actually have new merch up on Orchid 8. You can get all of our designs on mugs now. So if you want a thematic paintbrush liquor mug to be cleaning your paintbrush in, it's now available, you sickos.
There's also stickers, which actually came out pretty well. I'm not like the biggest fan of stickers generally, but I could see slapping that on the carrying box of miniatures.
Slap it on your friend's stuff to devalue it. The Warhammer logo will devalue items, so it's of great use. All right, but enough of that. Let's explain to everybody the premise of today's episode.
So to start, we had the original $500 challenge about a year and a half ago. And in that, we went through every army to try and find out which factions could be legally purchased from Games Workshop, 2,000 point army for $500 or less.
Correct, but that was basically just a theoretical. And most of the factions couldn't even do it, as we pointed out.
Yeah.
And those that could do it had extremely limited options other than like Custodes, and relied on basically really strong combo boxes or hilariously bad units like Katana 9th edition to get the job done.
Right, which didn't feel quite right to do a follow-up episode doing the same kind of thing.
Especially since we always yell at people not to pay MSRP for models, find them through cheaper means, they're all over the place.
Oh, absolutely. So this time it was more of a, let's actually do it. You came to me and said, let's actually spend $500 and buy an army. And it was one of those, like, let's buy an army that we can use because, we don't have infinite money. But, like, not worrying about official MSRP, instead just trying to get good deals however we could get them, whether it's eBay, some combo boxes, secondhand, whatever was legally obtainable kind of stuff.
Yes, and then I immediately upped the stakes.
Yeah, just a little bit, which support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SolarSingleton.
Great early shilling in the episode. What's our timer on this one?
Yeah, shill percent on this one. Yeah.
But anyway, the point is, in this follow-up, we have purchased 4 armies to prove that you can get 2,000 points for $500 for most factions in 40k, as we're going to prove. We're also going to spend time pointing out various lessons and tricks as we go through how we purchase these. Hopefully this can help newer hobbyists who are watching this when they're starting out so that they don't waste money doing things inefficiently because, well, none of us are made of cash. If you are, support us on
Right. Right, and it's one of those, like, we're going to go through kind of like the story on how we got them, because you're not going to be able to get the exact same deal we already purchased.
Yeah, all of these are, like, bad for specifics. They are to teach you lessons. Like, you cannot go get the combo box I did 6 months ago that's been out of stock for 6 months. Don't go looking for it. It won't be the same deal I got 6 months ago. That's not the point. The point is to go find combo boxes. But before we get into all of that, let's lay down our ground rules that we're playing by, because we needed to have rules of engagement here.
Right. I mean, any challenge needs to have some rules, and it's not just $500, whatever goes. So one of the big ones when looking at getting deals is 3D printing. And for this challenge, we decided no 3D printing. We're going to get full real GW models, not resin, not 3D printed, whatever.
Yeah, it would be way too easy to do this with a 3D printer. We'll do that episode someday. Do not worry. But for now, we're going to assume that this is for new people who are interested in buying GW models off the shelf, not printing their own equivalents.
Right, that's a whole separate episode, which we will get to.
And as for prices, we did not want to include tax. They're different everywhere. When you see a price tag, you always assume plus tax. That's just how it works. So this is $500 plus tax.
Yeah, this one was kind of tough because, like, tax is so different everywhere, but ignoring shipping was just not acceptable because, like, otherwise we just buy everything from the UK at a cheaper price, and then the shipping is magically disappeared. It's expensive to ship that.
Yeah, for those who are newer, in the UK, models are much cheaper than they should be when you check exchange rates, partially because everything in the UK is worthless. See the pound.
I enjoy that you took that line.
But before we get any further, I just want to put a sanity check out there for people who don't know what they're looking at right now. 2,000 points is a full-size game of Warhammer 40k. It is not the intended starting point to get into 40k.
No. Very much not.
There are cheaper and easier starting points. Look into Combat Patrol. You just buy a box, play that. The format's not balanced, but it's okay. It is your entrance that you work your way up from. You're not meant to be blowing $500+ all at once. This is the realm of insanity. This is not where you want to be. This is where I live. Do not be like me.
No, very much do not be like Brad and just decide to buy an entire army all at once, especially if it's your first one. That said, with all these rules in place, there are a few categories of the factions. There are the factions that can still be bought with the old $500 challenge rules of, the Amazon 15% discount from MSRP. Then we've got the factions that have honestly a lot of secondary market options, so you can find some decent deals pretty regularly. And then there's the factions that we actually bought. So with that said, I guess we can start and get the boring ones out of the way, the ones that fit in the old rules of under $500 with Amazon's 15% discount.
Right, so I set the patrons to work to do some free work for us. They helped me figure out what could be purchased on Amazon for a 2,000 point army for less than $500, just to nix these off the list and say, these are way too easy once we start adding on any other tricks. This is just buying stuff that you could buy right now on Amazon. No tricks involved. So those are Custodes, even with the price increases that have happened since the last episode, of which there have been 2 price increases, GW, in less than 2 years, and current points instead of old points. Custodes is still too easy. To give you an example, a patron found a list where they literally just had to buy 2 combat patrols, which ended up being like $285. So Custodes is flat out not a challenge. Grey Knights, famously probably the best combat patrol, same deal. You just buy the combat patrols and you can end up with a 2,000 point army, and to be honest, it ends up as a decently balanced one.
Yeah, that one definitely is fantastic for showing Grey Knights kind of thing. The other common one that I thought of from the old episode was Knights.
Yeah, so Knights didn't make it in the original episode because we were stuck at MSRP. However, even with the price increases, Chaos Knights can still get by on Amazon prices. Only Chaos Knights, not Imperial Knights. For the first time ever, they're not a mirror like we always joke, because Chaos Knights has access to more war dogs, and to be honest, the most competitive list you're going to play is the cheapest list to purchase awkwardly of just spam war dogs.
I don't hate that because that's a fine way to get into the army and then have your whichever centerpiece big knight you want to get, as your, I do actually enjoy playing knights, I want to get the big one kind of thing. But yeah, neat that Chaos Knights was actually able to do it.
Yeah, so you literally just buy 6 of the war dog boxes. There you go. Imperial Knights does not get to do that, however, which we can talk about. Imperial Knights, because they don't have access to the War Dog box, and their armigers are cheaper than Chaos ones because they keep trying to balance it to stop Chaos players from playing the best unit. And they refuse to write rules that make it where the big knights would be playable.
Yeah.
Imperial Knights ends up needing large knights.
Right.
At which point the budget is blown out of the water because they increased the price on them so much. $200 for a Knight Valiant is big yikes.
Yeah, definitely. But moving on to the counterpoint to Grey Knights, we've got Thousand Suns.
This one is actually impressive that we pulled it off.
I almost didn't believe it.
It's not the smartest list. It's a little bit of a meme, but it is possible. And it means you can get a realistic good Thousand Suns list for very slightly more than $500, even on just Amazon. But you can get Armin, 30 Rubrics, 10 Scarab Occult Terminators, and then buy an Infernal Master and 3 copies of the Thousand Suns Exalted Sorcerer box, which will build 3 on foot, 3 on disc, and then 3 that you say are normal sorcerers, not Exalted Sorcerers, because they're the same model.
That is a good box. It really is.
It's the greatest box ever, but this is entirely too many characters. However, it's close to actually being okay.
It's not actually that bad, and it'll be nice like to have access to them when you buy some more sots or whatever. And now you're like, okay, now I can go down a little bit on the characters and choose which ones I like or whatever. But I mean, amazing that you can get to this point.
Realistically speaking, you get rid of the third sorcerer box, you put in like a Terminator character or something, and it's still a bit much, but it's close to a normal list. But it's possible, and it shows how easy it would be, so it's not very much fun for this challenge.
So, okay, the next one is Necrons on our list, and this brings up a question of like, what if it's just out of stock?
Yeah, so right now, you cannot technically buy the list we found because it relies on a Catan that is not in stock that I also don't recommend buying because it's Finecast.
I mean, maybe somebody else found it on Amazon that it was in stock, but like, I've not seen it and like stopped buying Finecast stuff.
Look, the point is, technically it was possible on Amazon, even though the list is not great, and it's way too easy once we open it up to everything.
Yeah.
We'll talk about things we passed on that we saw but we didn't buy, and Necrons was constant.
I mean, just as an example, like today I saw one get posted that was like almost 2K for $230. It had some extras that were like 3D printed and whatever that you just ignore, but like,
you don't have to, but we did for our challenge.
yeah, but it was just one of those where it was like Necrons show up a decent amount of times in the secondary market. It's cool that you're able to buy it just straight in the boxes as well, but not a particularly difficult one at the moment.
And then for a last one, right on the fence, there are technically Space Marine lists, 2 of them at least that we found that are kind of garbo that you can buy for $500 on Amazon without doing anything weird, but it's still one of the 4 armies we're going to show off just because a lot of people watching this are going to be newer, so we might as well show off how you go about Space Marines, even though those who are experienced will know this is very easy. The list I'm throwing together, I put near zero effort into buying, and it turned out pretty great.
Yeah, it's one of those that's nice about Space Marines that there are so many things that pop up, and like the fact that you can technically still buy it on Amazon discount. So like you really get to pick and choose what you want kind of thing. You don't have to get stuck in like, oh, I'm forced to play Old Marines or whatever. Like all of it is potential after you look around kind of thing.
And Space Marines have constant discount boxes, so just wait a couple months and there'll be a new one you could buy.
So, I mean, on that, do we just want to jump right into that Space Marine list just as like an example of what you actually literally bought?
Sure. So we can do Space Marines right now as a bit of an example, real quick. To buy this list, all I did, this is the simplest story, I went on eBay. I bought some models off of eBay just because they were decent buy it now prices. I also went and found a Leviathan Space Marine half for $130 shipped. I put near zero effort into this to find a cheaper one. I just went good enough. And then I went on Frontline Gaming's secondhand store and I purchased the rest of the list of items to hit 2,000 points. It was that easy. So what we ended up with, we've got an Apothecary Biologist. We have a Captain and Terminator armor. I gave him a random enhancement for 15 extra points. We have a Lieutenant with a Combi Bolter. We've got 6 Aggressors, 3 Eradicators, 10 Hellblasters, 6 Inceptors, specifically Plasma, which is always the coolest, 20 Infernus Marines in 2 squads, 5 Stern Guard Vets, 5 Terminators, a Ballistus Dread, and a Redemptor Dread. So you got a pair of Dreadnoughts and a bunch of Marines. They're guys in tin cans. It's why people get into 40k in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty open list kind of thing. Like you said, like you've got a couple Dreadnoughts and a bunch of, you know, choices between what type of Space Marine you want to play with.
This is every casual Space Marine list. You would see this walking into your local game store at a table with Timmy playing it against Susie or whatever, and you go, yep, that's Space Marines.
Yeah.
Totally fine list, nothing crazy about it.
I feel like the only real missing part is like Battle Line.
Yeah, so I bought this before the current data slate changes. Battle Line was not important when I bought this. There was no reason to buy Battle Line units. Oops. Pretend instead of 10 of those Infernus Marines, I bought 10 Intercessors, whatever.
Basically, that would be the way, and it would be fine. Even if you don't, like, even this list itself with Battle Line mattering, you'll still have fun. Like, it's still a legit list, and it gives you an understanding of a bunch of different parts in the army.
Okay, so the next question is, what did I spend?
I hope it's under $500.
So we talked about it with the Leviathan half. I got 130 shipped. I didn't even include the Librarian in Terminator armor in this list. Like, it's just sitting off to the side not being used.
Which is nice to have extras.
And then on eBay, I picked up a couple items and some other stuff off Frontline. These were the 6 aggressors. It was actually 2 bids of 3 each, 3 eradicators, the 10 hell blasters, 2 different bids on 3 interceptors each, 10 Infernus Marines, which were stupid cheap. You can just buy those on eBay for like $30 right now.
Yeah, I've seen that one pop up a couple times now.
They're the junk, in air quotes, troop of the edition for Space Marines. Like last time it was Assault Intercessors. Now it's Infernus Marines. They will be harder to acquire when they move on to what they throw into every Space Marine box, just like it is now for Assault Intercessors. But for right now, they're stupid cheap. And then a Redemptor Dreadnought I picked up as well because it was sitting there calling to me. It's the first thing I bought because I like Dreadnoughts more than I like Space Marines.
I was pretty sure that you had the Dreadnoughts locked in.
Yeah, this doesn't even count. I own the Iron Hands combo box that was not part of this show. That's just something I own for the Spiteful Idiot army.
Yeah, but so the non-Leviathan part was...
So after shipping, pulled all together, it's $335. I won't bore you with exactly what everything costed this time because this does not matter. We spent $465 total and I put 0 effort in. I could have gone cheaper if I like really tried, but it was not worth doing. You could do Space Marines so many different ways and still get it under $500 because they have so many combo boxes, so many people who own them who are just hyper casual and will sell out of it eventually. There are a billion on the internet. We'll be getting into the lessons for each army as we do the next 3, but the point is for Space Marines, every trick in the book will work if this is the army you were interested in.
Basically, yeah. And there's no expectation for it to change anytime ever. Like they're going to continue to have Space Marines as a prominent thing in combo boxes and all that stuff. So like
this is Games Workshop's Mickey Mouse. There will always be another Space Marine.
Pretty easy, but nice to show that like it happens, like actually. But there were some other factions that had similar amount of like, wow, we've seen a lot of this.
Yes, things that aren't banned because they literally could just be bought on Amazon, but we banned because like they were very easy for us to do and we had no need for them.
Right, and one of the important things is like because we're actually buying these, we want to have some use of the models that are bought instead of just buying them to say we bought them kind of thing.
Yeah, we want this episode to not just be purchasing porn. Like we're not doing this just to have people click on this and go, wow, these idiots spent the money. I mean, some of you did that to get here, but that's fine.
We appreciate you for being here, but
we don't want that to be your takeaway.
Yeah.
The point of this was to get use out of these, to make sure that we weren't just wasting money to waste money. So there are armies where there were great deals. We could have picked them up, but it's like we already own this army in our playgroup and own like 7,000 points of it. We don't need another 2,000 points of it.
So, yeah, I mean, one of the obvious ones being Tyranids because of, you know, this edition's combo box thing.
Yeah, Tyranids was very easy. You could just pick up Leviathan halves. That's super cheating. But you can also pick up other Tyranids in addition, and you can end up with a list very easily right now. Eldar was another one we saw a couple times where we ended up hoeing and humming if it should be one of the ones, but my brother owns several thousand points of Eldar that never see play. So it really was a bad idea for us to waste the money on Eldar for this. So sorry, Eldar fans. I'm not making fun of you on this episode for once. It's just that it was a bad idea for us to spend the money on Eldar. Let them go to Eldar fans.
Yeah, and like there were several Eldar armies that you could buy, which is cool, but you know, there's also, you know, singles and all that kind of stuff that you could dig through and find. But surprisingly, Death Guard was another one.
And Death Guard was on our original list. And we had the plan even. We were like, we'll do this. Berilio doesn't know. Our editor, for those of you new, does not know that we're doing this project. And we were like, he likes Death Guard. When he shows up on screen, he's a Death Guard character. And he doesn't own a 40k army. He just edits a 40k podcast.
This would be like a great thing to do for him.
But then, the fool,
he played himself.
the other Maroon, on an episode we recorded a few months back, he mentioned how much he wanted to get into AOS and play Ideneth Deepkin, and wasn't really that into 40k because his local play group wanted to do AOS more, which is cool. But it does mean he screwed himself out of a Death Guard army without knowing it.
And it was not the easiest, but it was pretty common to find good deals on Death Guard.
Yeah, there were pretty good secondhand armies, partly because it was the 8th edition Little Brother army, as I call them. The half of the intro set that is not Space Marines, so it was in 8th edition it was Death Guard, in 9th edition it was Necrons, currently in 10th edition it's Tyranids. That's why all 3 of those armies are on this list of, like, they're in at least the dude trust me bro tier, and some of them are flat out banned because they're way too easy, like Necrons.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like Death Guard is probably gonna like age out of that at some point in the nearish future, but like
they are a more elite army. Anything that's like Space Marine tier can always get close if we're doing like discounted rates.
And the secondhand availability has kind of just like helped that out enough that whatever. We chose not to do Death Guard because it's in the you can do it kind of thing.
An obvious one is also Imperial Knights. It did not work out on Amazon, especially because GW just a few weeks ago increased prices again. And as we talked about, large knights have ludicrous upfront prices now if you buy them first party.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
So it really doesn't matter though, because on eBay you can buy Imperial Knights so easily. Everyone gets halfway through a project of painting a knight and gives up.
I think that that's the main takeaway I have from the Knights Trust Me Bro tier kind of thing, of just have to understand that you're probably going to get a work in progress project that somebody's dropped.
Just reprime it and paint it what you want, and then you can drop it halfway through doing it and sell it to somebody else.
Basically.
We can continue the circle of life.
Yeah, I mean, the other one was Orks. This just like always comes up. I mean, I just saw another one today or yesterday. It was like 1,500 points for like $250 or 200 pounds or something like that. Orks are super common to see. I'm not entirely sure why.
There's just a lot of people who play Orks, and therefore there's a lot of people who sell their old Orks. But we did not want to go with it because Eric owns enough Orks.
I do own enough Orks.
As much as I want him to own more Beast Snaggas, he owns enough Orks.
So yeah, we chose not to do the Orks. And the last one was kind of surprising to me.
It was always right on the edge, and we debated it. It was Tau.
Thanks.
Tau, for those of you who don't believe in reading GW's IP, right? But Tau is one that we kept seeing like decent deals on, and we're like, should we do this as one of the armies? And then we'd ho and hum about it, and then, you know, one of the 2 big pieces of it would get sold, and it's like, okay, never mind, we won't do Tau. And then another one would come up again, and we kept being like, do we do Tau? My wife already has like 3,000 points of it.
And then like there was the Kroot stuff coming up when, you know, I was like, oh, maybe things will change, and you know, saw a couple like Kroot that were for sale, but it's like, okay, what's it actually gonna do? Wait too long and it gets sold.
Yeah, and unfortunately the Kroot were on sale far before we knew what their actual points were.
Right.
Like for months.
Which, great if you were looking at getting Kroot, but
risky for us doing an episode.
Yeah, we had goals in mind for what we were spending our money on, and it made it risky. And it would be one of those, like, we would just hesitate long enough that it would be gone, and it'd be like, well, I guess that's answered already kind of thing. And that just kept happening. So, you know, it kind of is one of those, you'll be able to find deals. Just keep looking.
So we've already mentioned half of the armies in the game, almost literally. We've mentioned 12 of them. So more than half the armies in the game have been mentioned as possibilities or just real easy.
Yeah.
So I would say that if you've got a $500 budget, which is for a lot of adults a decent hobby-sized budget to spend for the year, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the other thing is like, you don't have to spend it all at once.
Yeah, this is insane people talk. You do not buy the $500 all at once unless you're unhinged like us.
I mean, if you have the budget available and you're like, I know I want to do this because, you know, I've played with other friends and I have a friend group that's playing, this is the deal, and you have the money, okay, sure. But like,
for a lot of people, you ease your way in. This is what you'll be spending over your first year or 2 or 3. But we did it 4 times in 6 months. And while we do these, let's just go in order of like the least impressive to the most impressive. Because again, this is how entertainment works.
Yeah, it's like designing a storyboard and following it through. The next list that we're going to go with in the Chaos Space Marines.
So this is one I've had to keep my trap shut on a lot as people people keep mentioning CSM, and I know I own like many thousands of points of CSM now.
This one was not fully expected when it happened, but
This is also one where we could have easily put it in the like passed on it tier. We saw this several times purchasable, but one of them was such a good deal that we said, screw it, this is going to be the third army.
Right.
Or technically the second army. The third army swapped because it was Death Guard and then it wasn't.
But do you want to tell the quick story?
Sure. For each of these, we'll do story time on how we purchased them, and then we'll do what the actual list ended up being, the price of it, and then we'll tell you the lessons so that hopefully you walk away with something other than just entertainment from this episode, and you can be a smarter purchaser, customer, buyer, capitalist.
Wow, yes, all of those things. So,
Words are hard, and I have a podcast.
yeah, the army that was going to be Death Guard ended up being CSM because there was a great deal.
There was. So, yeah, it's kind of mundane to show this one off. There were several ways we could have done this. It kind of fell into our laps instantly, too, which makes it not the greatest story. But on one of the random times it showed up, my brother was on his way home from a work thing. He stopped by a very large game store that's near us, but is not like a local game store.
If you know what it is from pictures, don't say anything. Keep it hush.
Yeah, don't name the store because there's a lot of drama about this stuff with GW. But they sell secondhand stuff.
And it's really nice when stores sell some secondhand stuff for everybody involved, honestly.
Yeah.
So one of the times your brother stopped by and saw some stuff.
He sent pictures to us. We'll show them on screen. Yeah, I saw the cabinets, and there's a lot of cabinets. This was like 1/8 of what he showed in the secondhand area. But I saw all of this CSM, and the prices started like ringing bells in my head because like I generally know what a CSM list looks like. And I was like, hold up. This is like a one-stop shop. We have the list, right?
And like we had seen some CSM stuff popping up, eBay and other things of like, okay, we roughly know what prices to expect.
So I quickly called him and said, stay at the store. I'm going to sit here and start mathing stuff out and tell you what to buy, and I'll pay you back when you get home. So I opened up New Recruit. I opened up a CSM list. I started throwing stuff in it that I saw on the shelves that looked like it was in good condition. And we ended up spending what on the shelves was $381 before tax.
Oh, I love this part.
Yeah, there was a bank error in our favor.
Yeah.
A lot of these items costed $30, and it's very clear that the kid at the cash register just accidentally forgot a 30 at one point because we paid $351 before tax.
I mean, I totally get it. Like, there's a certain point where you're just like 30, 30, 30, 30, and like your brain goes into this like power save mode, right? Of like, there's a continuous thing happening. I don't need to think anymore.
So I'm just pointing this out. We bought a Rhino for less than $30, and we saved $30 by dulling the mind of the employee at the cash register. Therefore, Rhinos are still free. Buy our hat.
Confirmed. But when we're talking about what we actually spent, that bank error in our favor is not going to the end total. We're going to say that like it was part of the cost.
Exactly. We're just going to say it was $381 because that's what I should have paid for this. Also, if the store managers at this store ever see this episode, this totally didn't happen. I'm making this up. Do not punish your poor employee for a mistake many months ago. Also stonks though. So we walked away with the vast majority of the final list. Like, buy a single model for whatever I want, done.
Yeah, it was wild to see it all come together, just like sitting there. And they were good prices too.
Yeah, and the models are in good quality. We've got pictures of them from when they got home.
Hopefully Berilio's been showing some of them as we're talking.
Look. They're beautiful, YouTube, aren't they? Audio audience, look with me. Ooh, ah.
Yeah, we'll figure out camera eventually, but this is a pretty good step.
But for the last model, luckily this is the secret point of this episode to show you guys options available. And I didn't utilize one of the major options I would like to show off, which is mini swap. So I went on our mini swap and purchased the last model there to show off that this is an option. This is on Reddit. There is a subreddit called mini swap. It is one of my preferred ways to pick up models on the cheap. It's also a good place to go to sell your models. I have a general higher trust of mini swap than I do of a lot of other places. It's a pretty well run subreddit. Never had an issue, and I have sold and bought models at least half a dozen times each on this place.
Yeah, it's been since we started playing that it's been used. So
The thing I dread most about using Miniswap is that I'll have to go to the UPS store. And I don't like going there.
it's kind of scary, isn't it?
I don't like shipping things. It's scary. I have to talk to the people and do the things.
Yeah. So, okay, what did you decide to get from Miniswap? Because I know that there's a bunch of CSM options if you're just looking for a couple days. Like,
Okay, well, this is cheating because I blew my budget wide open. I bought a bunch of stuff, but only one was required for the $500 episode. So we're going to say it was the Forge Fiend because it was well under the price.
fair enough.
Let's get to the final list.
All right.
So we've got a Dark Apostle and his two little cronies. We've got the Dark Commune, which is the cultist leaders. We've got the Demon Prince. It's the old version, but they're the same size as the new one. If you really feel bad about it, put him on a rock. The new one is only like a 6-month-old model.
Yeah. And I don't think the old one looks bad or anything.
No, it's cute. It's not as detailed as the brand new one.
Right.
The Lord Discordant, the best looking model with the worst rules of 10th edition. A Master of Possession, which is hilarious. We'll get to the prices. A Sorcerer and Terminator armor. So we've got a lot of characters here. There's 6 characters in this list.
Which is a decent amount, but like not completely crazy for CSM.
Again, I could have cut this up differently and done less characters, but the point of this is it is a very good cross-section of the army when we finish this list out. So we've got 10 cultists, we've got 15 legionnaires, which was 20, but points updates have made it so that I needed even less to finish this up. So to fit in my Forge Fiend, I actually cut 5 of the legionnaires we bought because I bought them as 2 groups of 10, but whatever. 10 Terminators, the Forge Fiend I bought, a Hellbrute, 2 Venom Crawlers, and a Chaos Rhino.
I mean, that's a pretty solid list. It's a bit heavy on the characters, but like not unreasonable. There's some cool vehicles chilling around, and it's always nice to have a Rhino.
All the characters who are leaders have something to lead that makes sense for the most part. We've got dudes going in the Rhino. Like this, you can lay out in a deployment, and it is a real list. There is nothing really crazy about this list, and again, it came in under budget. You could change things out if you really wanted. We'll get to the budget though. So to rattle off some prices real quick, we paid 20 for the Dark Apostle, 25 for the Dark Commune, 25 for a Demon Prince. All of these pictures have been on screen on YouTube, but whatever. The Lord Discordant was 38. The funny one is the Master of Possession we paid $18 for, which is someone new. You don't understand why this is so funny. There was a point where this thing was almost 95 US dollars because it was unpurchasable for like 9 months while being meta.
Yeah, which like don't chase meta.
Don't chase the meta ever.
It was stupid that it was at that point, but yeah, also dumb that it was a problem.
Yeah, last edition, it was one of the best HQ units in Chaos Space Marines, and it had been 9 months since the last time it was actually purchasable by Games Workshop.
I'm pretty sure it's still out of stock on their actual thing.
It might be, but the point is it's actually sold now.
Right. There is ways to get it.
Then again, we paid $16 for a Sorcerer and Terminator armors, $16 for 10 old cultists, $30 for Legionnaires, $30 for Legionnaires, $30 for Chaos Terminators, $30 for Chaos Terminators, $30 for a Hellbrute. Oops, I forgot to push the button once.
Yeah.
25 and 20 for a pair of Venom Crawlers, $28 for a Chaos Rhino, and then $64 for a Forge Fiend I bought on Miniswap. So all of that, when you throw it together, is $445 if I did my math right, and if not, the correct one is on screen.
Not bad.
Yeah, so we're way under budget still, and like we can do whatever we want with the rest of this, and I could have done different. This was not min-maxed.
There were more options that could have been bought instead. Yeah.
Yeah, this was done to make a halfway balanced, nice slice of what CSM has. So I'm very happy with the end result here. It was 1995 points for this list, by the way, in the current balance. Didn't even use 5 of those Legionnaires. So it is incredibly easy to walk away with a good CSM army from what we've seen over the course of the last 6 months.
I mean, you know, to be fair, not everybody has a game store that's local-ish that has these kind of deals that they can check on all the time, but it wasn't that far off from what we had seen on other things popping up in eBay. And
like, you could just go on Frontline Gaming, which does secondhand stuff. It's a slightly higher price than our local place we've seen, but they have a huge amount of things that go through their secondhand, and that's purchasable online from anywhere in the US. You just got to pay shipping. So like you have an option even if it's not your local game store. However, this is due to drama with GW. They don't like you advertising online that you have secondhand stuff in your shop. They really don't like this, I've been told from several stores locally.
Yeah, allegedly there's been things said
to not show their secondhand stuff online if they want to keep their distribution of GW stuff. Because of this, you would have to go to your local stores to find out if they have secondhand stuff usually.
And as annoying as it is, it's also like not that bad to just like go into your local game store and see what's going on. So it's tough, especially if you don't have a game store that's local.
That's what the big ones like Frontline are for then. It's like the mega shop that's countrywide. And then mini swap is always a good lesson to take away from stuff like this. I really think it's far safer in my mind than eBay. I hate buying things on eBay. I have been scammed so many times in my life because I play Magic and One Piece and stuff like that card game wise, and half of eBay is scam garbage or people who will cancel your order and then repost it for $80 more.
It's so tough to recommend, like, oh, take a look at eBay for your stuff because, like, it can be a pain in the ass.
I've never been screwed on eBay for Warhammer stuff. It always tends to be card game stuff, which is a vile place you should not go. But having bad experiences on that side of things, it makes me always wary of eBay.
And Miniswap has been pretty reliable, and like just it seems like they're generally good at moderating things, and like it works out well. All of that said, like this is another caveat of we live in the US, Michigan, so like that's our frame of reference when we're buying things, which means that like there's sometimes a larger community of people on Miniswap trading to people in the US than like Australia.
Yeah, this whole show is US based. I can only help you so much, Australia. At a certain point, you're on your own. Defend yourself from the wildlife and hope to find a good deal.
Yeah, hopefully, there's some local game stores and stuff like that. You can always just like, I don't know, like ask some old coworkers that might be like, hey, you said you played Warhammer at some point. You still do that? You need your army anymore?
Barter with the local kangaroos.
Yeah. But as much as we've complained about eBay having potential scams, like there's some good deals to be made.
Oh, is this a clever segue, Eric?
I hope so. Trying to into the third army.
Yeah, this was the third one we chose. I actually didn't think this was going to make the list. It is Leagues of Votann, which is shocking because I really had it nixed on the list originally as something I could pick.
There was no expectation of this happening, and like it didn't really change even as we were kind of looking around. Like you'd see a few things here and there, and there'd be like, oh, maybe here's a solid deal on a Sagittar, and then that would disappear, and it'd be like, all right, what do we do now?
Yeah, so for those who don't know Warhammer, Leagues of Votann is space dwarves, and they are one of the newest armies. They are only about a year old, and because of that, it's hard to find them secondhand. And also, the newer the sculpt, the more expensive it tends to be, which is just a Games Workshop problem. So we had no real hope of getting Leagues of Votann as one of our three armies. However, this was our eBay army. The story behind this one's pretty quick and simple. Ready? So I was on eBay browsing around looking for the third army we're going to talk about.
Which, that one took a while, so it was nice to have seen a bunch of other stuff at the same time.
Yeah, we'll get to the heartache of that one. But one of the days, I saw a pretty sizable Votann lot. So I clicked on it. I'm like, this is large. And then I saw in the description that the person had posted like, this is my 2,000 point army I'm selling. And I was like, I'll be the judge of that. So again,
Yeah, right.
immediately opened up New Recruit and started pushing everything into it and going, oh crap, this is a 2,000 point army. This was probably someone's competitive list. They got halfway through building, the meta shifted, and they were annoyed and moved on.
I wouldn't be surprised if they were looking at like playing 10th index and were like, this is dumb.
Yeah, they could have just gotten bored of Votann's index. That's fair.
But it actually was like a 2K army list put together.
Yeah. However, there was a problem with it. It was not up for $500. They had it on Buy It Now for $600. It looked like it had been up for about a week. And when I went to see about if I could do best offer, I saw that it said like, you will be a pending offer. They have declined 4 offers or something. So I talked to Eric. And I was like, do you want to have us bid on this? Should we just give them an offer and say like, look, this is our limit, and then see if they accept it? We talked about it, and I was like, all right, I'm doing it.
Because it's a pretty good deal, and it would be nice to have Votann. It would honestly be really nice to have Votann for our playgroup.
Our playgroup has a player who, for Christmas, got part of the Votann battle box thing because we bought it partially to rip the land fortress out and give it to Eric as his orc Christmas present, which is a whole different topic. So we had a very minor start to Votann.
But like, there's interest in fleshing that out to a full list, and it needs a lot of help. So this would do pretty good.
Yeah, so I was like, I don't want to offend this person. $600 is probably a pretty fair asking price for a whole 2k points of Votann.
It seemed like that was reasonable from what we had seen other stuff go around, but it was up for a little while.
I said screw it. I've been told to screw off plenty of times in my life. I can handle it. So I put in a best offer of $490 plus the $10 shipping because you can't modify that on an offer. And I just put in the note like, hey, my budget is exactly $500. I can't do a counter offer. I hope this is not offensive. I would really like this army. Hit send, and like 4 hours later, I got the notification that my bid had been accepted.
Yeah.
So I guess a lesson we learn is don't be afraid to make an offer on something you're interested in, but be polite to other people.
Also, don't be a dick. Like, I'll give you $15 for that $600 thing.
Yeah, that's not a great way to go about it.
Yeah. Also, like, if they decline it, accept it and move on.
Yeah, so the army ended up showing up a couple weeks later. Everything was there exactly as pictured. Fantastic. The final list, for anyone wondering, is a call, 6 Thunderkin, which I have as 3 and 3, but whatever, 10 Berserks, 10 Hearthguard that you can either do as 5s or 10s, 18 Hearthkin Pioneers, which are the bikers, which is the legal maximum number you could ever field. This is the one thing that we'll get into, but
little meta chasing kind of thing, but it's also Votann, so
a pair of Hecaton land fortresses and a pair of Sagittars.
it's a pretty good spread.
It's 1980 points, and then you can just take a 20-point enhancement, boom, 2k points.
Yeah.
This is a pretty fine list. I, in fact, did not know much about Votann, but I was like, Bricky knows Votann. So without giving him the actual details of why I was asking him about this, I sent him the list and said, hey, in a casual game, is this good? Because my personal belief was like, if I didn't spend every penny, I could have mini swapped for the price of shipping the like 6 of the Pioneers out for like some battle line guys or a character in battle line guys, whatever. It seemed like for mini swap that would be something I could do for basically the price of shipping. But when sending it to Bricky, he said he was totally fine with the 18 Pioneers, even like casually. He's like, yeah, it's just a fast landed list. If anything, his argument was land fortresses aren't that great right now, so maybe only one of those. And I'm like, well, I would definitely keep the land fortress, so I guess this casually is a good list if we're not agreeing on which unit we wouldn't have.
Yeah, it's one of those where it was like, I don't disagree with what you're saying there, Bricky, but no. We're going to keep the extra land fortress because that's a cool model.
So I do think this one wound up being a pretty solid list if we had that. And I guess my general advice on that fact would be it's a fine 2k starting point, and you're always going to end up with more than 2k eventually because you're going to want variety. You're going to want to be able to like list build and choose what you want in your faction.
And like probably something new is going to come out in a year or two of your time playing, and you're going to want to get that.
Yeah. So I wouldn't stress too much if what you end up getting, you're like, I feel like I've got too many of this unit.
Yeah.
It's like you will eventually come to a point where you're like, man, I really want to play a list where I run 15 of this model where I didn't really like it originally. Those will happen. It's a solid starting point, even if not every model that you buy is your favorite.
So, I mean, this one definitely was a lucky get kind of thing, but most of the reason that happened is because you've been watching eBay and mini swap and local game stores for a couple months now because of our third list.
This was the one where I decided to make us suffer.
It was such a like, oh, that would be really cool if we could do it. It might be doable. And then you forced it.
So this one is, to pull the veil back, the final list is Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum.
2K guard for $500.
This was not something that most people would think is possible. It is one of the most expensive armies in the game.
Yeah.
It's not AdMech or Sisters, which are probably not doable, but it is up there.
That would be very tough to do, but Imperial Guard is definitely troublesome. But you get tanks, and sometimes you can find decent deals on tanks. So it wasn't like impossible.
Yeah, and originally, this is the idea that started this episode.
Yeah.
Because I was like planning out a sequel to the $500 episode, and then I was like, what if I do something really impressive and actually buy an army for $500?
And then it was like, well, which army don't I own?
Well, no, it was more, this was in January.
Yeah.
I was at our LGS. They still had Christmas boxes for sale, including IG ones. So at the LGS discount, it was $177 for an IG Christmas box in January. They wanted them gone.
Which, I mean, it's a pretty solid box.
Yeah, it's 2 Rogaldorns, 20 Cadians, and a Cadian command squad.
But I can also understand, like, if you're already in Guard and have an army, you don't need it.
Yeah, so I was like, all right, let's do the Christmas box. We'll say this one is one of the 3 armies. It's probably going to be the hard one. I was right. It wasn't a real hard bet.
I mean, we could have made another one of, like, Sisters, but that was, let's not.
And I was originally like, all right, we'll do this over the next month or so, and then we'll do the episode.
I remember those days.
And here we are. I believe this episode airs July 9th, so yeah.
Half a year, a month, same thing.
This was not fun. This was the challenge part of the challenge, but to give you the story, we started off with getting that double Dorn box. Double Dorns.
Wow. It's not going to be a thing no matter how many times you say it, but, you know, just keep going.
I basically almost gave up at one point. We were like 3 months into scouring eBay, mini swap, stuff like that. And basically, anytime there was a good deal, I wasn't checking like every single day. I'd check like 23 hours after someone posted on mini swap, and you would see like 7 people DM'd them and they said sold on their mini swap thing. And I'm like, all right, didn't get that one. And that was basically the repeat there. eBay, it would be things that are too expensive or things in our price range that sold almost immediately.
And like this is the point in time where like we started seeing like, oh, Tyranids, Aeldari, Death Guard, Orks. There's a lot of those cycling around. That could be pretty easy.
Yeah, this is where all of the dude trust me bro tier came about, where we saw a bunch of factions pass by.
And it's like, why didn't we just choose that?
This episode could have been so easy.
But after 3 months of no success, didn't actually give up, surprisingly.
So my brother was at the store where he got the CSM lot. This is a different day.
Again, this is like 6 months of time, so...
Yeah, this was, I want to say, about a month after the CSM one. But he sent pictures, and in one of them, on the bottom shelf, I saw Guard, and I was like, stop right now. Show me these Guard. Show them.
Zoom in and enhance. Show me.
And they were a very solid deal. Like, real good. We ended up actually buying more than we used on this final list, just because we could not pass up these prices if we were going to make a Guard army and like actually end up with like 4,000 plus points of it so we can have variety and play different lists. We were like, all right, we're buying a bunch of stuff.
Again, it's one of those like we intend to use them, so like we're not just going to pass good deals as they are there because it's like, oh, we capped ourselves at 500. Well, this is the $500 list. We got some other stuff as well.
So after he acquired those models, I threw everything that we had now into new recruit, and then I filtered out stuff that was still bad dollar to point ratios, because even with great deals, Guard is horrendous.
Right.
We ended up getting an extra 2 tank commanders with their little chode cannons, because whoever sold these knew what was good in 9th and 10th.
All right.
We got a 3rd Rogaldorn, which I was like, at the time when we picked this up, I was like, man, I'm going to get made fun of for running 3 Dorns when everyone's running artillery spam and Guard when I show this list off.
It was very much you don't have any artillery and Guard does artillery. What are you doing?
Yeah. 10 more Cadians, Gaunt's Ghost, which I actually debated not even buying because I was like, they're like $30-something for a kit that I think is that much on the shelf. I was very wrong.
No, very wrong. They're also a lot of points too, relatively.
But Gaunt's Ghost, what are you thinking, GW? Oh my god, they're like $70 US for 6 stupid little dudes.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Anyway, not the point of this. We ended up picking up things like some Cadians and Bolgrins and other stuff that aren't in the final list, but they were purchased off to the side. So the final thing I did was actually a little bit boring, but I like the Leman Russ. I like tank spam. We already have 3 Dorns and 2 tank commanders, right?
And that was the kind of thing. It's like, all right, we need to finish this list out and like actually make it a thematically fun list that you would actually play. You need some more tanks, like to do the like, okay, you're playing the tank army. That's what you're doing right now.
So what I did was I went on eBay. I started looking at just buying Russes, essentially just new in box because they're like 50-ish bucks or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
And I was looking around, and this is right when the whatever they're called, Solar Auxilia, they were coming out in 30K. This is like 2 months ago, I want to say.
Yeah.
So they were everywhere on eBay, and they have essentially the Leman Russ, but if it was a 20-year newer sculpt.
It's so beautiful.
It is a Leman Russ. It is correct in every way. So I looked at the original Leman Russ I could buy, or for the exact same price, the fancy Leman Russ I could buy.
Yeah.
So I bought us a pile of the 30K Leman Russes. So I'm aware I bought non-40K Leman Russes at the end of this. I could have bought 40K ones, but I have taste.
And I don't think anybody is going to complain.
One person will in the comments, which is why I'm saying this to cut them off now. Better Leman Russ.
And like, you just bought that with the standard discount.
To be honest, this was probably a couple dollars cheaper at our LGS, but I wanted to be hip with everybody where you didn't have to have your local game store having a great discount. So did that. I did pick up at the LGS just a Lord Solar, Leontis or whatever his name is, and he filled out the rest of the list.
Right.
We do have more than what's in this final list because we bought a bunch of other stuff, including some other Leman Russes, but that's not the point. This list is in budget.
Hopefully we didn't add a bunch of pictures of like, here's the other pile.
I took pictures of them, so I'm sure at some point Berilio will make fun of us by putting some of them on screen. But the point is, here's our final list, which I was afraid was not going to be good. I did a Cadian command squad. I gave him a random enhancement. I did a tank commander, the second tank commander, who has an enhancement. Gaunt's Ghosts, Lord Solar Leontis, 10 Cadian troops, 20 Cadian troops, a Leman Russ battle tank because it's the classic, even though I prefer plasma. I wanted to put one generic Leman Russ in.
I would have complained if you were just like, I'm just going to use executioners. And it's like, hold on, man.
Plasma's the coolest thing. I then did a Leman Russ executioner because plasma is cooler.
But you got to respect the classics.
Yeah, they're the same points. It doesn't matter which one I chose. And then 3 Rogaldorns.
Hell yeah.
This list, because of the points changes and stuff that occurred very recently, actually dropped in points, and then I had to fill out the rest of the list with enhancements. But with the enhancements I chose, it's 1995 points out of 2K.
And like, I know that when you bought it, you're like kind of worried, but like, this is still a pretty solid list.
It would have been okay, and it's a great lesson of don't chase the meta. By the time you have your stuff together and you assembled everything and painted stuff, the meta will have shifted multiple times. What was an unplayable list will be the new hotness. Rogaldorns are on the rise right now. No one was playing one when I bought that battle box at Christmas.
But also, like, very cool model. You're gonna want to play it, like, if you have a chance kind of thing, if you have any interest in tanks. So, yeah, I like the list just because it's cool, but you also asked Bricky.
Yeah, because us liking it is one thing, but neither of us play guard, and I'm always self-conscious because guard players are unpleasable. So I sent the list to Bricky, and I was like, hey bro, if I played this list in a casual game as guard, do you think this is like a normal list? And he was like, it's not an optimal meta list, but it's like a fine, sane, totally usable list.
He did bring up the potential shortfall of objective play, which, yeah.
It's fair. It's a tank heavy list. They're always going to be like that.
Yeah. You've got, 2 groups of Cadian shock troops. So, yeah, all right. You're just going to kill stuff.
So I was pretty proud of myself because I got the badge of approval from a known guard guard guy. It means I didn't screw up too bad. I really hope I did the guard proud, guard players out there, because I know on previous episodes I get a lot of flack from you guys. I hope you salute and approve of a bunch of tanks and 30 Cadians.
I feel like the fact that we managed to get this army put together for Imperial Guard for $500, one, it was difficult. If you're going to try and replicate this, be prepared for the long run.
Yeah.
But also, like, it is doable. So, I mean, that's just, I think we did a pretty solid job there.
Let's prove it. Pricing. I bought the Christmas box for $177. Gaunt's Ghost for $32, which I almost didn't have him buy. $50 for the last Rogel Dorn. $32 for each of those tank commanders, which is a steal. 10 more Cadians for $25 because they ended up in this list. Hilariously, they were not in the old iteration before point changes and then things got all screwy. Then I just bought a pair of Lehman Russes, each for $52, and Leontis himself for $46 at our LGS. Grand total, $498 shipped.
Hell yeah. Not much leeway, but
I'm a little smug that we pulled this off, all right?
yeah, successful. So, I mean, there are a bunch of things on this one. Like, yeah, it took a bunch of time. You did get some decent deals on the 30K version because it was coming out kind of thing.
For some lessons, let's break it down. This was stressful and tiring. I would not recommend trying to stick to a super tight budget with these known expensive armies. Guard, Sisters, Genestealer, Cults, Drukhari, especially not AdMech. Anything down there at the bottom end of the spectrum for affordability is probably a very bad attempt to do something like this. Know which armies are very expensive and try to avoid them if you're on a budget.
And we were trying to like buy it all kind of at once to a certain aspect to like finish this project. You don't have to do that.
We had our hard limits of it had to be exactly 500. I can't be like, oh no, I spent $530 and you all call us a sham, we failed the challenge, right? So I had to make sure we were under 500. You, when you buy things, can go 530 versus 500 is probably the same thing over a 6-month period for you, the viewer here.
So one of the nice things is you can use other kits that are basically the same, but potentially newer and better, and just say that they're, you know, for example, 30K Solar Orks can just be Cadians.
Yeah, that one I did debate doing for this. I avoided it because I didn't want to get called liars, other than the Lehman Russes because they look better. Screw you. But you can get like 20 Solar Auxilia from 30K for the exact same price as 10 Cadians right now. So if you're really trying to save money and you want to play like guard, heavy guard, and just play a whole bunch of dudes, look into stuff like playing Solar Orks. It does not matter if your Cadians are wearing cooler uniforms. It's the same deal.
And I mean, that also goes into the whole, like, if you're buying secondhand stuff, some of it's going to be put together, which means like WYSIWYG is going to be weird.
Yeah, but it will not matter early in your career no matter what. And even late in your career, it still won't matter for 99% of players.
Yeah. So like, don't worry about, oh, it doesn't have the option I want. Does it look cool? Is it the option you like? Is it a good deal? Go for it. Same thing of having alternative kits that are so close that it just doesn't matter.
I will say for a final point here, one that I did not follow when I used eBay for this to make this for you guys is if you have an LGS that has good deals, support your LGS over eBay. It's nice for your local game store to get some love.
I mean, it's also going to generally be easier.
It's true as well, but just if you like your local game store, support them. It's a nice final lesson to take away from this.
Absolutely. Check out your local game stores, then check out things like Miniswap, then, you know, look at the eBays and
Frontlines and non-local stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
And when in doubt, don't pay full MSRP. Amazon is always discounted over that at least. And as a final reminder, we banned ourselves from using 3D printers. Absolutely okay to use. There is basically zero stigma in the 40K community about 3D printing stuff. A lot of people will talk to you about how happy they are about what they just printed. If you're looking to save money, we'll do a 3D printing episode another day where we talk about building armies from that angle.
Yeah, it didn't really make sense for this because you were either going to try and like buy them online or like you'd have to have a 3D printer already or know somebody. So like it is an avenue, but we just removed it from this for the moment because it was easier.
So what did we end up with? Extra armies we've got to paint and put together and eventually learn how to play.
Somehow there's more tanks, just more tanks, always more tanks.
All right, so that covers the last list. So now that we've got all 4 of these armies, well, 3 of them, the one is just the Spiteful Idiot army that we already had.
We have to do something with them, like paint them and stuff.
So what do you guys think we should do with them? Leave ideas, whatever you think of. If you want to see us do like some crossover challenge thing or something, throw ideas out there. We'll figure out what sounds cool to do.
Yeah, I mean, I love the crossover challenge idea because that means somebody else is painting.
This is all a scam to get Eric to have to paint less models. I see now.
Hey, I'll take it.
I see why you put this in the show notes at the end. All right. Also, if you guys like this episode, please take a moment to do the YouTube pleasantries. It would help a lot. This episode was a lot of work to make, a lot of work to edit. It would just be real helpful to us. And if you enjoyed it and think other people would enjoy it, share it around. Show it to friends. Maybe you all want to get into 40K and suffer the brain rot we all suffer from. It's fun.
Yeah, something like that. But hopefully this is helpful to those trying to get into the hobby and are worried about how do you find the best deals kind of thing. Hopefully this gives you some understanding of what to look for.
But anyway, give us your ideas for what you want us to do with them, and I promise you guys will be seeing these armies again.
Yeah, absolutely.
But before we get out of here, episodes like this are hard to make, take a lot of work, take a large amount of actual money, which is why we're very thankful that we have so many great patrons helping us to keep this show running. Some of those patrons pay us enough that we have to read their names every month. They are 3D Frank,
4K Fart,
99 Nines,
Adrian Frank,
Alex Fuja,
All Nighter,
Andreas,
Andrew Kubikek,
Bedlam's Nemesis,
Beth Jesus,
Cameron R.,
Christian Scrualius Vikland. That's not right. But that's as good as I'm going to get at the moment, so.
Christopher Gargliano,
Chroma Vale,
Craig Judge,
Cube 1359,
Devin Volius,
Dominic Colasico,
Dragon Egg,
Duskers,
Edward Lawrence,
Ellis Corton,
Ethan Gerard,
Ezelvor,
Finn Smileys,
Gathering Clouds,
Grundlebundle,
Gyarados,
Happy Brontosaurus,
followed immediately by Hellfire,
Hyperion TV,
Ian,
Jacob Gibson,
Jared DePerna,
Jaden,
Joel,
Calyx,
Kyle the Warrior,
Lucas,
Le Bloop Bloop,
Logan Banach,
Madison Ramanama,
Matthew Tsushima,
Michael Melcher,
Mixolydius,
Moist Toast,
Monkey218,
Morpheal 55,
Nick DeFio,
Nikki,
NJ Harlan,
North,
Owlby Bark,
Pierce,
Proteus 7331,
Retro Brave,
Rookie XP,
Ross Warlock,
Samuel Summerfield,
Sarah Hansen.
Severed Sage. Oh my
Jesus
God.
Christ.
It's the final boss.
Skippity Ohio boss of Zinch.
Sophia of Luna,
Squareson,
the Marine who plays Tau,
The Crusader 13,
Thrango,
Timothy Cody,
Vartha Mark,
Vault Guardian,
Warm Hot Cakes,
Woolmine,
and Yasser Zazo. Thank you all for your support. It helps so much. We also have producers. They are Blisted Brain,
Brandon Janke,
Brandon O'Carroll,
Demolition Man,
Dr. Lace,
Elikman 24,
Yon Guy C,
Joel Rachels,
Kiwi Fruitbird,
Lord Partridge II,
Michael DeLulo,
Noel,
Rock,
Scott Gray,
the fucking God Emperor of mankind.
and War Game Simulator. Thank you so much for all your support.
And on that note, we are out of here for the week. I hope you all enjoyed this. We're out of here.
Sounds good.